Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. Momentarily, I will be joined by Paul Angelle for a discussion on business planning. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits, as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. My name is Paul Angelle. I am I'm a business consultant / coach. I really focus a lot on accountability, which requires a plan, right? So if I do accountability coaching, I can't do it if there's no plan. And if I do a plan, it's usually not worth very much if it doesn't have accountability. My background is over 20 years in sales management, sales training. I started a few businesses. None of them are related to one another. I was a sports photographer. I had a media company. I sold solar panels. My father had a restaurant. I've been working full time since 1983. Now, I was very young. I'm from Louisiana. Laws about children working for their parents are very lax, but I learned a lot about working through kind of a lens of ownership, because my first job was a family business, so I kind of felt like it was mine, and I think that perspective has helped me have success in just about everything I've done.
I always enjoy talking about planning because plans are great. I forget which general it was until you come into contact with the enemy. And then the plan goes out the window. And the enemy, as you know, in business could be anything from clients to government.
Well, even in that case, though, if the plan goes out the window, it's better than not having a plan. Because a plan changes. I consult with law firms and small businesses, and the purpose sometimes of having a plan is to have something to change from. But if you're just having, I don't know, maybe an alcohol-infused manic episode that's making you think you need to pivot your entire practice area or service delivery, the first step would be, okay, let's compare this new idea to the business plan we have in place. If it still makes sense, assuming we were of sound mind when we created the plan, then it's okay to pivot and make the change. But usually it's that one step that keeps you back. But in military, there's a plan, and there's practice, and there's perfect practice, and there's repetition, and there's all these other things. Because I've seen some beautiful plans saved on business owners' desktops, never to be looked at again.
Yeah.
I've also seen some blurry plans written with an ink pen on a napkin, and they're alive and they're being referenced and they're active in the business and they're helping. But you're right, life happens and nothing always goes according to plan, but you're always better off having taken the time to make one. I mean, I believe that.
Couldn't agree more. But as you said, the plan is a living document. Things are going to happen. Changes are going to have to be made. But whenever I've created a business plan, I always begin with the mission. And that doesn't change. Your principles, your values do not change. I was once asked what the easiest decisions were that I ever had to make with my current business. And I said it was simple. When an elderly woman, and I think age had a lot to do with it, said to me, she was the owner. Yeah, she was the owner and CEO of a nonprofit that dealt with the disease. I forget which one, not important. She said to me, now I have nothing against them, but I don't think a minority would be comfortable working here. So don't submit any minorities. That was easy to deal with. The next one, the mission of my company used to be to promote the hiring of veterans. Now it's to promote the hiring of veterans and first responders. But this one woman said to me, now, I don't think my staff would be comfortable having a veteran work here. And that was easy to deal with. All right. All because of the mission statement and the law, of course, in the first case. So sometimes you can just say no and you can turn down a client and you're better off for it. There are, however, a lot of gray areas.
Right.
So how do you keep focused on principles and values when, to quote you, life happens?
Well, you're spot on. You start with, I call it the why, or maybe someone's purpose, or what's your mission, or why do you put on a shirt and actually work every day? It's not out of habit. There's a reason for it. And I'm kind of a challenger because people will say, when I ask a business owner, what's your purpose and what's your why, what's your reason? 90+% of them give me the exact same answer. And it's something about family members, like children or their spouse, or maybe even a dog that they think of as a person. And that's their why, that's their purpose. That's why they're doing everything. And I usually push back on that because that's different. I'm looking for motivation, because once I figure out motivation, I can get the most efficient, effective version of their effort. And that's what I want in the plan. So I will say, what is it about your daughter? And then if I get a real answer, like, well, I had to pay my way through college and I had to work and it was miserable and I could have made better grades and I want a college fund, fully funded, and I want my daughter to not have to worry about that. That's a goal. That's a goal based in the purpose. But when I make a business plan, I want to know their purpose. I want to challenge them on their purpose. I want to pick it like a scab and go deeper and deeper. I want to really, really know what I'm dealing with. And then I want them to set goals. I kind of have an inappropriate relationship with growth. If you're working with me and you're not interested in growing in some way, we're probably not going to get along. We're going to grow. That's just what I do. I obsess over KPIs and numbers and conversion percentages and conversion percentages of the conversion percentages. And I stay on top of it, and I hold business owners accountable to that. But we're going to grow. And so once I've kind of established what the mission and what the purpose and what their why is, I let them know next year your business is going to grow, which means you are personally going to have more money available to you. So not getting into the details of how much money it is. If you had more money next year, what would you spend it on? Who would you become? What would you do? Where would you go? What would be your goals with a different income than what you had last year? More money. And so I start to learn about them, and it varies regionally, right? Because when I'm talking to someone in South Louisiana, it's a bass boat or a four-wheeler or a shotgun. But if I'm talking to someone in San Francisco, it's not those things. It's something completely different. But the goals don't really matter. It's just they matter that they track with the purpose and the why and the mission, and they're smart. They're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant, and they have a time bound to them. Then we can figure out what these goals are going to cost. not to the penny, but relatively close to what it's going to be. Then I say, all right, let's say last year your business grossed $1 million. You personally netted $100,000 in income from the business. That's how much money went to your personal checking account to pay your house note, your bills and stuff. And given that we're going to continue everything we did last year, next year, and you've created an additional $50,000 in net need, it's fair to say that your revenue next year needs to increase by 50%. And I come to it that way. So if it's a weird number, like they say I did 1 million last year, I want to do 1.5 next year. My plans might say $1,475,381.15. It's not going to be just this round number. It's going to be tied to these specific things. And usually it's like some really extravagant vacation because they haven't taken a vacation in a bunch of years because they're not profitable enough, or it's a new kitchen or a new house, or they're going to trade in their old Honda for a nice Mercedes, something like that. And what's great about that plan being built on the goals, because I put it in a spreadsheet, it's all math. Once we have the numbers, if you want to do 1.5 million next year, well, what's your average sale? And how many leads does it take to get a sale? So we know that, okay, if it takes 10 leads to get an appointment set, if it takes 6 appointments to get 5 to show up, 5 show up, 3 engage, and if 3 engage, 2 pay. All right, to get 2 paying customers, I need 10 leads. I need 10 customers a week. Well, that's how many leads we need. And we track to that. And it takes wildly different amounts of times for different individuals as far as how long it takes to make a complete plan. But if it took 10 hours total to make the plan, for example, we spent 8 hours talking about the mission, the purpose, and the goals. That's the foundation of the business plan. And what it helps me as the accountability coach, because I know how to properly motivate that person. No one wants to go to their spouse and say, hey, how we talked about 2 weeks in Greece in the villa? Well, I had a bad quarter, so we're going to have a long weekend at the Jersey Shore instead. That's not going to fly. But you don't want to have that conversation. So what do? You just don't have a bad quarter. You do whatever needs to be done. You're properly motivated. And that's how I have the bulk of my success, is really making the goals based on, making the business plan based on the goals themselves. And of course the accountability to those goals.
For some of our viewers, thank you for that. For some of our viewers, I should point out that I am now referring to a landline, a phone on the desk as they had in ancient times. My boss years ago sent me to a 3-day sales conference to learn how to sell. And it was one of those where when it was all over with, he asked me how it was, and I said, I just lost 3 days of my life that I'll never get back. It was horrible. And then afterwards, I thought about it, and there was one good thing this guy said. I don't remember his name. I wouldn't tell you if I did. He had a farm or a ranch. I believe you have a farm.
Yeah, it's 5 acres.
All right, small farm, but still a farm. And he wanted to buy a new horse. There was a horse that he saw at a friend's stable, and he wanted that horse. And he took a picture of the horse and he put the photograph on his phone. So every time he didn't want to pick up the phone to dial a prospect because he was fed up with hearing no, the photo would remind him that that was his motivation. So I hear what you're saying. But, excuse me, in your application to be on, you wrote about the secret motivation to ensure success. Was that what you were referring to before? The personal, or is it something else?
It was what I was referring to before. I like to use this example because I'm proud of it. But when I was younger, when I was in high school, I was a fast runner, exceptionally fast. Stole a lot of bases playing baseball, I'd run down fly balls. I would return kicks in football. I ran a 40-yard dash in 4.4 seconds. That's fast. That's there's a lot of people in the National Football League that don't run that fast. Now, I'm 53. I'm fairly certain that if you were to have me line up and hold a stopwatch and time me running 40-yard dash today, I would probably not hit 4.4 seconds. And why would I? Is there anything more pathetic than watching men in their 50s run sprints? I mean, fall and hurt themselves. No, there's no reason. Even if I did get talked into going play softball or something, I'm not sliding. I'm not stealing a base. I'm not, if it's over my head, it's over my head. I'm just going to run and pick it up off the ground. I'm not doing those things that a younger me would have done. However, if I'm in the wilderness and I see a large bear running towards me, even though I think I heard that the best thing to do is not to run, I'm going to run. And I'm going to come pretty freaking close to that 4.4 seconds. 17 years old in 1986, 7. Because I'm properly motivated. And motivation can be a carrot or a stick, right? It's a carrot in high school because you want to steal the base, or you want to win the race, or whatever your goal is for running fast. But with stick, people, produce amazing results the last day of the month when they're on a performance improvement plan. And if they don't make 5 more sales, they're fired. You can motivate people with incentives or with fear, but proper motivation is either. And I find that really connecting the business to the goals is very useful. In fact, I take it a step further. Once I go through all the goal stuff with the owner, I let them know that exercise we just did would be a great exercise for you to do with your team, because you might be the first employer to ever ask someone what their goals are and maybe work out a plan to achieve those goals. And as soon as your employees start to see the business the same way that you do, you see the business as the vehicle that will make your dreams happen or pay your bills or however you look at it. But when an employee sees your business that same way, they start to exhibit signs of ownership, which I'm a big fan of. And they're motivated by the success of the business because they now see it. If you have someone that they want a Corvette and you say, oh, that's cool. How much does that cost? And they say, I don't know. So that's not a goal. Your job is to go to the dealership and find out what it costs. With your credit, what would the down payment be? What would the monthly payments be? What would it do to your insurance? I want to know what would be the cost to you to get that car. And then when they come back, say, okay, say it's an additional $1,000 a month. All right. Is there any flexibility or bonus structure in their plan, and work out a process that could deliver an additional $1,000 a month to that employee possibly. And once they see it, their goal, someone else is taking actual interest in it, it elevates them. But it's basically my advice going downhill. But once you learn how to be motivated in that way, then you also learn how to motivate others in that same way. And it'll turn a C+ employee into a B+ or an A-. And that's a big difference. And it's just the ownership and the interest you would have taken in them.
I'm going to do something now that I don't like to do because I hate, you said earlier that there's something you hate. I forget what it is. I hate acronyms, but I'm going to use one.
Okay.
What are SMART goals? SMART.
Well, that's it's an acronym, obviously. S is specific. Like when you said, how much does it cost? And they didn't know. Like if he would say, I want to buy a new car, what kind? Doesn't matter. Okay, we got to get more specific. The M is measurable. How do you know if you achieved it? I want to lose weight is not measurable. I weigh 220 and I would like to weigh 180. That's measurable. A is for attainable. It's one thing to say, I want to make an extra $10,000 next year. It's another thing to say, I want to purchase 90% of Amazon stock. Given, assuming you're in a situation where that's just not attainable in 12 months. R is relevant. When we're talking about goals, I keep them to the confines of, personal, professional, and financial. Some goals are just not relevant. My goal is to, I don't know, I'm struggling to think of an irrelevant goal, but that's what the R is for. And time is time-based. And that's the strongest one, because the best definition I ever heard of a goal was someone said, it's a dream or a wish or a hope with a deadline. And once you put the deadline on it, it turns it into a goal. And that's kind of the first caveat. But SMART is the acronym that, just to make sure, if you take that acronym and apply it to your goals, 3 out of 5 is not good enough. You need 5 out of 5. It's got to be specific. It's got to be measurable. It's got to be attainable. It's got to be relevant. It's got to have a time limit on it. Someday is never.
There's a question that a lot of job applicants, when they get the interview, they don't know how to answer. And it's, what are your weaknesses? And I always tell my career counseling clients the story of a man who came to me. And he was getting interviews left, right, and center. So there wasn't a problem with his resume, the cover letter. He had potential. And I couldn't figure out why he wasn't getting any job offers. We met for 2 hours, and he handed me the job descriptions for the interviews he had, and I couldn't figure it out. So I asked him, or I said to him, you know what, let's do the simple ones, because I don't know what else to do. I said, what's your biggest weakness? He said, oh, I'm asked that all the time. What do you say? I'm a procrastinator. What else do you tell me? It's nothing. And I said, and you don't understand why you're not getting any job offers? You have to show that you're self-aware, so you're a procrastinator, but you have to do something about it. So tell them what the solution is.
Yeah, or mention your progress, or what books have you read, what courses have you taken, what have you tried?
What have you done?
Right.
In his case, just to finish the story, he would buy himself a Snickers bar, chocolate bar, whenever he finished a project early. And he thought it was silly, and they'd laugh at him, and it was silly, and they did laugh at him, but they also offered him a job. So that's what makes it important. My point here is that sometimes you are your own worst enemy, and you have to get out of your head. And his thinking that his solution to the problem would hurt him was what was harming him. And as soon as he realized, even though it was silly, to let people know that he had a solution, it's fine. Now, I found the same thing with colleagues and networking groups who come to me and say, look, it's just, I don't know what the issue is, but I can't get over this hurdle. And we talk it out, and I realize that they're the problem. Now, it's, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's very hard to get someone to change their habits. They're wired to work in a certain way. And today you have to be able to work differently because of technology. I had one client who hired me to do his social media, specifically LinkedIn. And we started a campaign. I remember it was a Thursday. Friday, it was live. Monday, he fired me. Now, he was a friend, and he called me up and he said, look, this isn't for me. And I said, what's the problem? It just started 48 hours ago. And he said, in my day, you put an ad in the paper, it appears on Sunday, and Monday, the phone starts ringing. It doesn't work that way. So how do you motivate people who are so set in their ways?
Well, I mean, a lot of times it depends on the person, because set in your ways, there are introverts who are set in their ways. There are extroverts who are set in their ways. There are expressive people. There are open people that are set in their ways. There are closed people that, so you want to be able to communicate with the person. And typically it's the habits and the patterns that may be causing the problem. There's usually a thing behind the thing. I'm usually interested in what's behind it. Some people might have a weird mindset with money, which I never understood, because I was always about the accumulation of as much money. Whoever dies with the most toys wins.
Yeah.
I never had a problem saying, oh, I don't want to make more money than my brother. My mom might get upset. Like that, those kind of money mindsets. I had to learn to be patient and accepting of them because they're real. I just didn't understand them.
Yeah.
But being open to listening to what they're saying and what they're telling. I'm, when someone says, I can't make a cold call, I'm like, is there this like deep agoraphoria that, I mean, phobia, what's the problem with it? Well, they made one and it blew up and it was embarrassing. There's some kind of trauma, or there's something's in their way, and there's usually a thing behind the thing. And usually when you find the thing behind the thing, okay, we fix that. Let's get back to the problem. It's like, where the hell's the problem? It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's not even a thing. Like one of the common things in sales training, we would have your best sales reps, the ones that just killed it, right? Every month they were well above quota. It looked almost effortless to them. The rich get richer because their networks would grow, because the success bred success. And then you had the people who just weren't going to make the 6-month ramp or whatever, because they just didn't have that it factor. The problem a lot of times I had as a manager was these rock star sales reps, they were like me when I was a salesperson. They had drinking problems. They were promiscuous. They didn't follow instructions. Their attention to detail was a little off. They didn't follow all the rules to the T, but they were over quota, so we kind of smoothed the runway for them. And then we were trying to implement things like CRMs. Like I was in sales before that, so I remember index cards and tickler files and Rolodexes and stuff. Well, this got replaced by data entry, and all these really exceptional salespeople, they thought that was wasting time, that was micromanaging, that was horrible. I couldn't get that done. And I was having to fire salespeople who were at quota because they stunk so bad at putting data entry in. So I had a little bit of leeway with what I could do with the comp plan. And I said, I tied KPIs to the bonus. And the KPIs were a checklist. For a sales account, these 3 things had to be true. 1, we had to have the signed paperwork and form scanned and turned in. 2, we had to have the either credit approval or the payment. And 3, they had to be input into the CRM. So if you didn't get all 3 things done by the 30th or the 31st, it wasn't going to count for this month. Well, salespeople had this tendency to either sandbag or fill everything at the end of the month. And once they realized all this work to get these last minute sales in, none of it was going to count unless you did those 3 things. once we tweaked that comp plan, they're all coin operated. I figured it out. And the problem of not doing the paperwork or not doing the data entry went away. Corporate was telling me I needed to do some trainings. I need to put people on performance improvement plans. I need to fire them. Meanwhile, I get a new sales rep, and 2 weeks into the job, I'm looking at their paperwork and it's a work of art. It's a red flag for me. I'm like, man, these people aren't going to cut it. They're not going to hit their numbers. Their paperwork's too good. They're too comfortable with the process and the extra work. You've got to get to the root of what the problem is, because it's like medicine. You don't necessarily treat the symptoms so much as the cause.
Paul, I want to share your contact information
Okay.
with our viewers. And before I let you go, I have one final question. Is
Sure.
there anything I did not ask you which you wish I had asked you? And if I had asked you, what would you have said?
Well, not right off the top of my head. I do know I work with small businesses. My niche, or my favorite thing to do, is small law firms. I really, really get a lot out of it's easy for me to make small law firms grow. I know exactly what to do. It's funny because they all think they have unique and specific problems when they're the exact same problems as everybody else that does what they do. It's that snowflake syndrome. They're unique, but I can hit the ground running once I raise awareness of numbers and I connect them with their goals. Even before I implement any tools or hacks or processes or procedures or systems, they start to grow, and they start to grow quickly, because if you've worked with lawyers before, it's a high margin proposition. So once it might cost you 100 grand to make 200 grand, but that same 100 grand, you can make 500 grand. You're not selling cars where you have to pay for the inventory first. And small law firms can scale and grow quickly. And I've said I had an inappropriate relationship with that. I've made people millions of dollars. I have not made myself millions of dollars, but I can tell you that those clients who made all that money as a result of what we implemented, I don't know that they were more excited about it than I was. I really take it personally. I'm really on top of the growth, but I love the process and the procedures and the systems inside a law firm. That to me makes the most sense. And I know that's probably weird to someone that doesn't spend a lot of time with law firms, because they're quite confusing.
Paul, I want to thank you for giving an interview and answering questions in a way that was not confusing.
Oh,
You've provided a lot of food for thought, and I'm sure our viewers appreciate it as I do. So I thank you, sir.
well, thank you very much for having me. This was great.
It was my pleasure. I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, stay focused on success.